From the Missouri School of Journalism, welcome to Global Journalist. I'm Jim Flink. This week, our focus turns once again to Ukraine. Since the Euromaidan movement at the end of 2013, clashes between pro-Russian and anti-Russian groups have intensified throughout eastern Ukraine. The United Nations is estimating that more than 400 people have been killed in eastern Ukraine since this past April, and that more than 46,000 people have fled their homes. Journalists have also been attacked. Vice News correspondent Simon Ostrovsky was detained by unknown militants in the city of Sloviansk, and others have faced intimidation, threats, and other pressures for just trying to do their jobs. Today on Global Journalist, we look at the current state of affairs in Ukraine, as well as the challenges journalists faced in reporting there. We're joined by Maria Marketinova. She is a freelance journalist who was detained in Sloviansk. She's now in Donetsk. Max Avdiev is a photojournalist with Slon.ru and also with the New Republic. Also we are joined by Margot Gontar, an executive producer at Espresso.tv. And we want to thank you one and all for joining us today on Global Journalist. I understand that we have lots of different points of view here represented today. Max, I want to start with you and talk a little bit about your experience as a photojournalist out in the field, what you've seen and what you've covered in eastern Ukraine.
First, I covered Donetsk and Sloviansk mainly. For me, it wasn't a huge problem to work there because I had Russian passport with me, so it was much simpler to work there. But I always tried not to speak that I'm on assignment for US magazine, because now in eastern Ukraine, if you're a journalist, you could not be neutral. For these rebellions, for these militants, you are not neutral by default. And they think that if you are from one side, you should work on one side. And that's why it wasn't easy to work in eastern Ukraine for journalists from Kyiv or from Western medias. So I hadn't any serious problems.
Okay.
Only some stops on checkpoints, some searchings, but nothing special.
Maria, you're a freelancer for a Russian news outfit, and yet you experienced some problems. You were actually detained. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Well, actually, from the very start, when I entered Ukraine, it was pretty easy to work, because the forces, they call separatist forces, they were pretty friendly and willing to explain their story. So it was on the border with Russia, because they have a quite big battalion. They have named Ghost, the battalion Ghost. So I stayed with them for 2 days, and I discovered a lot of stories about their backgrounds and motivation, and what armament they have and from where it comes from. And then I moved to Donetsk, and it was very peaceful and kind of friendly, more or less.
Right.
But when I moved to Sloviansk, it's pretty different atmosphere. Then it's like a real war there. So I've been, after maybe 20 minutes or 30 minutes, when I arrived, and I moved to the hotel where a lot of journalists from Russia staying. I think woman from reception, she called with this security service guy. So they arrived to the hotel, and they took me by force, and they said that I had to go with them, and they brought me to the station, the security service station, took all my things and started to ask questions. And I was I don't know, they suspected that I'm kind of a spy or coordinator, despite I had an accreditation from the Donetsk Republic press office. And they said that I had to stay for longer until they will check my background.
And Maria, just to clarify, when you're talking about they, are you talking about the separatists, or are you talking about government officials?
Actually, it's a security service office, and it's governed by separatists.
Okay. Right. So they were looking at you, and they were doubting why you were there, and basically detained you. And I understand they detained you and put you in a sort of a dark cellar or a basement?
Yeah, cellar. Yeah, they put me in a cellar, dark and moisture and with black mold. Yeah, so it wasn't a nice hot room. Yeah, that's true. And that was pretty rough. I mean, like they didn't kind of separate me from the other people that were detained
Right.
there. So yeah, it was just.
So Margot Gontar, you're an executive producer for Espresso.tv. You are based in Kiev, but these kinds of stories of journalists trying to cover stories in eastern Ukraine right now are not uncommon, right? This is a very difficult place to find, to have journalists deployed, let alone to try to get the story out, yes? Margot?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. I need to, add detail because I'm a producer of English language newscasts. So I'm doing it for the, English-speaking audience mostly. But nevertheless, it's too hard because we had, for example, our own journalists in the Sloviansk and the Donetsk region, but basically, you can have all the strict information from the, for example, clashes, like fights when they appear, and you may have no footage of that, and you may have no concrete information maybe of that besides maybe a spokesperson who will tell it, from the Eiffel forces or like that. So it's kind of hard. I'm not talking even about the endangering of the life of journalists who are coming there to cover the stories. Mm-hmm. I think it's common struggles for all the media who are working with the stories now. Because when you're just writing a story, like text, it's kind of easier because you can really, you can just talk with that, maybe have some photos. But when you are talking about the video content, you need footage.
Sure.
So you need people coming there to shoot it. And you may sometimes use someone's footage like from YouTube, but when you're talking about some rights and other stuff, you need really your own footage, and this is really a hard struggle.
Max Avdeyev, let's talk a little bit about the developments of the last week or so, where it appears that there seems to be a softening of stance on the Russian side. The Russian president has asked that his legislators revoke his right to sort of declare war, if you will, on the region. How seriously is all of the developments of the last week being taken right now?
I don't think this decision to revoke this permission is serious because formally nobody needs this permission if they will need it, and but the main decision that I think Russian authorities took about Eastern Ukrainian, they took like a month ago or a month and a half ago, and they decided that they will not invite like any official troops or army into Ukraine, and I don't know, they don't think they will take part in it.
Follow through. So, interestingly enough, though, this is something that both sides are very jaundiced about. Yes, that the prospects of peace are in any way improved. And I guess, Maria, the question that I have for you in Donetsk is, and it appears that things are worse in some cities like Sloviansk than they are maybe in others. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, definitely. It's much more the situation in Sloviansk can be described as a war, like there are little battles like every day, and even after ceasefire has been declared, there are still battles and victims from both civilians and separatists. And in Donetsk, it's much safer. I mean, in the city center, you can say it's a normal city, people living their normal lives, but still on the suburbs where the posts are situated, like I've heard the information that today there were incident with the 5 separatists being stolen and been taken from the bosses, so they're now trying to find. And the information that these activists from the right sector, they're trying to find visiting homes, people flats, and trying to find some separatists and pro-Russian activists. So it's unevenly distributed this conflict, even inside of the eastern Ukraine. Now the hotspots are Kramatorsk, Lugansk, and Sloviansk, and Donetsk is more peaceful.
Okay. You're listening to Global Journalist. I'm Jim Flink. Today we're talking about the current state of things in Ukraine, as well as the challenges journalists are facing in covering the story there. We're joined by Maria Marketnova. She's a freelance journalist who has been detained in Sloviansk. She's now in Donetsk. Max Avdiev is a photojournalist with the New Republic, and he's received millions of hits on his coverage there. And Margot Gontar is an executive producer at Espresso.tv. Margot, you hear Maria talking about the fact that it's very much a civil war in some of the cities, and yet in others it seems more peaceful. Is that the view from Kiev?
Well, yeah, it's kind of hard to, feel it from Kiev, because basically if you don't know that something is going on in Kiev, you won't, really know that something is going on, because it's living its own life after the Maidan. But, I think from here, when we're writing stories, it looks like that there are some, some places where actions are going on, and some of them where the city is kind of living its life. It was previously, but later we have, now, we have a lot of stories of these kind of internal refugees, let's call them, these forced migrants. People who were forced actually to move from there. And after hearing and watching the stories and seeing these people tell the stories, it kind of from Kiev looks like there is almost no people in, for example, Sloviansk.
Right.
Or there are some people who, have mostly, maybe they decided to stay there, but or they have no real opportunity to flat from there. But even if regardless of the case, they are stayed. They need to, hide in the basement or like that. This is the point to that from Kiev.
Right.
So
let me ask you a quick question. You have been concerned enough that while there is obviously quite a bit of accurate reporting going on, that you have seen, particularly on social media, a rise in inaccurate storytelling that's been going on, that you established a fact-checking site to sort of try to vet through what is true and what isn't true. Tell us a little bit about that site and about what you've been able to find out.
Yeah, actually, me and my colleagues from alumni from the Kyiv Mahila Academy, we have the master program journalism, and so from the alumni from there, we gathered and brainstormed. It was in March, in the very beginning, when I think the first troops appeared, or it was about for them to appear in Crimea, and so. I think it was our kind of answer to all the heaps of this untrue information that was spread around by Russian media mostly at this time. So, and we tried to debunk it, and we, organized a place, subfake.org, one site where we gather all this for people, to have the idea that this protest is made by people on purpose, and that there's some logic in that. And so it's not like, random mistakes of random journalists.
Right.
I think now they know about us and know that other media are trying to debunk the information. And so that's why I think they kind of changed the strategies, and we had so many, these users on social networks that were trying to spread this photos from Syria, for example, trying to show them events in Donbass, for example, or Sloviansk, like that. But we have a lot of them now. We have a lot of videos from example Syria or Dagestan, which again are kind of shown like it's from the eastern Ukraine. And when you have users trying to spread it, the hard thing that you can't really, track down who done that in the first place.
Right.
Because it's just some user who was created maybe by some journalists, but it's kind of hard to track down. And it's kind of hard to stop the spread of this information.
So again, it's called stopfake.org, and basically it tries to sort of vet. For instance, one website showed a morgue full of dead bodies that they said was in Sloviansk, when in fact the photo was taken by an Associated Press photographer in Ciudad Juarez, Mexico, and really had nothing to do with that region.
Yeah. And for example, I think we had one of the latest stories, like again, if it was about the photos, it was like the girl from, allegedly girl from Sloviansk, killed in Sloviansk, but it appeared like Anastasia Lukushina, I think, but it appeared she was killed in Ussurisk, it's Russia. So this kind of things. But we are living with more serious stories too, like Russian media trying to tell that UN reports, that in UN report experts told that, some negative things about the Ukraine that was, that they allegedly have evidences, but when we tracked down, investigated the report itself, there were no words about it. So, but you need to investigate it, and the thing is, like, that there is much more information in the information space that you really can handle it with volunteers, and we are basically volunteers.
Right. You're listening to Global Journalist. I'm Jim Flink. We're looking at the current state of things in Ukraine, as well as the challenges journalists are facing in reporting there. We're joined today by Maria Marketinova. She's a freelance journalist who was detained in Sloviansk. She's now in Donetsk. Max Avdiev is a photojournalist with The New Republic, whose coverage has received millions of hits. And Margot Gontar is an executive producer at Espresso.tv. Max, in talking about covering it, it's certainly, with the misinformation, it almost makes your job more difficult to get the accurate information out there when you are competing against this sort of misinformation. How difficult is it for sources to trust you in the field when they don't kind of know who you might represent or what point of view?
Yeah, sure. They don't trust any credentials you have with you. They trust more the way you speak than your papers. So they hear that I speak like Moscow Russian accent. So they trust me that I'm, okay, you're from Russia. Like, whoa, you could work here. If you are not speaking like well for them, are not speaking Russian, they are very negative with such a journalist. And comparing like all these territories like Gorlovka, Sloviansk, Donetsk, most of them have their own like press accreditation. But they don't care about each other. They do not recognize each other. So sometimes you could, like my friends and colleagues, they came to Anthrazit. They had with them credentials from Donetsk People's Republic, credentials from Sloviansk commander, like rebels commander.
Right.
They had credentials from Lugansk People's Republic accreditation. But in Anthrazit, they were told, like, you will not shoot there, you will not work there, get out of here.
Yeah. And Max, it's particularly difficult also for like European journalists, American journalists. Those folks are even having a hard time getting any access whatsoever, are they not?
It depends. It depends, because some European journalists had a great access. Like, it depends on how you talk, how you describing your position, how you're describing who you are, what are you trying to show, like, and even some French freelancers, they managed to work like perfectly, or some UK journalists, they had no problem there working with both sides, even with Vostok Battalion. Speaking about rebels groups, the most open group is Vostok in Donetsk. They are like really open to Western journalists. They understand that they should cooperate with any journalist they like meet. Yeah, they always ask like not to shoot people if they don't want to be shooted. Like ask first, because or ask them to mask their faces, because like first month, like in May, a lot of soldiers were like angry. If you're starting shooting them with open faces, they ask to mask them. So they are frightened that they will be captured or their families, relatives would have problems. Because a lot of people have relatives in central and western Ukrainian parts. So they really like paranoid about that. But completely different situation in Sloviansk. It's almost impossible to work there, even for me, with Russian passport or like Russian journalist, because the only like media they wanted to work with, it was like Russian state propaganda TV channels. They don't want anyone else to cover what's happening there in general. Sure, some guys managed to work there, but it was much harder to work than in Donetsk or somewhere else.
So, Maria, in that situation where you don't know, maybe from town to town, or sometimes maybe even from block to block, how you're going to be received, how difficult does that make the story for you to be a freelancer to get the story out about what's really happening there?
Even in terms like when from what's going in the other cities, or well, actually now here is the mainly only way like to see what really happens is to go to the place and see with your own eyes.
Right.
Or the other way is to have kind of informers or friends, you know, from I don't know, from the army, you know, because they're on the front lines. And now I have like quite a few contacts, and I'm calling them from time to time and asking like what's going on in their region, like in their parts of the west of the eastern Ukraine. If there are any battles, how many victims, and stuff like that. So if you have good connections and if you're not afraid to go and see with your eyes, then it's possible to cover, actually, yeah.
Do you feel like the world is getting an accurate depiction of what is going on in eastern Ukraine, given the coverage that you have seen going out, Maria?
What I see from the news, I mean, like, it's definitely some, something uncovered, because information from journalists and information from the witnesses are, like, you know, they're not matching, because the journalists are, it's hard to work there, and I understand that, the TV channels and media, they're, asking the journalists back. It's understandable, but I would say that Russian media, some channels like REN TV or Russia 24, they're covering a good picture, but it's still some lag in time. Like you see in the news the situation of maybe like 2 days ago. Like the fresh information are hard to deliver, because, for instance, they are not covered even with the cell phone connection. So you have to go there, you have to make a story, you have to go back to some place where you can get in connection. So it's kind of a logistical problem.
Right. Max, given the developments of the last week, where do you think this goes next? Do you think some degree of a ceasefire will hold? Even this morning, we're hearing from both sides about trying to sort of strengthen that ceasefire, that sort of peace. Will it hold?
The problem is that everybody thinks that it's like negotiation between like Donetsk and Kiev, but there's no Donetsk People's Republic in general. Like there's nobody to negotiate on rebel side, because in every city there's another chief rebel, right, who controls his own group and who doesn't recognize Donetsk, and they have absolutely different situations. For example, in Sloviansk, they are in a war for last 2 months, and every rebel there is a criminal by any law, and would be no amnesty for them because they killed a lot of people. They shut down some helicopters, plane, and so on, and they have no peaceful solution. So they will fight till the end. I don't think it would be any possible peaceful solution with Sloviansk, because they are like suicide fighters. They have nothing to lose anymore. They have nothing. What will they do? Nobody will give them a corridor to Russia, even Russia too. Russia doesn't need these soldiers back,
Right.
even if there are some Russian volunteers. And especially Russia doesn't need Ukrainian rebels on its territory. So nobody will give them a chance to go out, and there's no chance for them for amnesty, and they will fight. Completely different story in Donetsk. Most rebels in Donetsk didn't take part in real fightings. There are not so many people killed or injured and so on. So most of Donetsk rebels and Donetsk separatists, they could go under amnesty. So for them, there's a possibility for peaceful negotiation. And the city isn't ruined itself. It's not a war there, because all bars are open, like restaurants working, clubs, cafes, Friday night parties, people ride bikes during the night time, like
more peaceful.
Yeah, more peaceful. And
Okay, so
different situation, like different chiefs. In Gorlovka, there's this guy called Bes. Igor Besler, means his nickname is Demon, and he's like really crazy fighter, like till the end. He's ready to kill people in basements, and he wants to fight. And I don't think he will take part in any peaceful negotiation.
So it sounds like it's more like tribal regions than it is necessarily anything that's cohesive on the anti-Russian side. Well, that's going to have to be the final word. That is all for this edition of Global Journalist, a production of the Reynolds Journalism Institute and the Missouri School of Journalism. Our thanks to our guests today, Maria Marketinova, Max Avdeyev, and Margot Gontar. Our executive producer is Casey Morell, with assistance from Varvava Bomina and Olga Kristaleva and Jessica Anania, and also Batal Hassan. Travis McMillan from the Reynolds Journalism Institute is our director. Kyle Felling from KVIA is our audio engineer. And please do join us again next time. We'll have another edition of Global Journalist. I'm Jim Flink. Thanks a lot for listening today.